Hi everyone, Kendall here, and this week what I have for you is the second block in the 16-part series for the What's in Your Closet Sew-Along, hosted by Pat Sloan at her website ilovetomakequilts.com. So grab your fabric, grab your free pattern, come with me, and I'll show you how I do it. We start where we do every week, folks, and that's with all of our pieces cut out as per the pattern, and this particular block is made up of all half square triangles. In the original pattern, Pat suggests various dark fabrics, but you can see from my inset there in the top left hand corner that I went with different colours for the stripes. Construction is the same though, and we start with our half square triangles by drawing a diagonal line on the wrong side of all of our background squares. We'll then match those up right sides together with all of our feature fabrics, take those to the machine and stitch 1/4 inch on each side of our drawn line. With our stitching now complete, I'll just clip all of these apart, and I like to give these a quick press first just to set all those stitches and seams and let the thread settle into the fabric before slicing them in half on our drawn line and then taking them back to the pressing mat and pressing them all towards the darker of the two fabrics. We now need to trim all of our half square triangles down to their final size, and this just gives complete accuracy. I'm once again using my makeshift block lock that you would have seen me use last week. I simply placed 3 layers of painter's tape along the 45-degree angle on my 6.5 inch square here, and you can see that that just catches the edge of where we pressed over to the dark side. Once you've got that lined up, you make sure that there's enough fabric outside your required trim down measurement, in this case that is 4.5 inches, and use trim the first 2 sides, rotate the block around, set your block lock back on there, match up the 4.5 inch line on the freshly cut sides before trimming the final 2 sides. You can still do my 2 at a time method with this makeshift block lock, as that painter's tape will still catch where you have sewn your seams. If you have one, a rotating mat can come in handy when trimming down these half square triangles using the block lock or the makeshift block lock. And you would just do exactly the same thing, but instead of rotating the block, you rotate the mat, and then you can just slide down that block lock as it will already be sitting exactly where it needs to be, and take your second measurement as per the first instance where we rotated the block and the tool. The mat just does it all in one instead of rotating 2 separate things. Some people like them, some people don't. I'm hit or miss. We now can lay the block out with all of our half square triangles done, and we will follow the pattern, and I've put my little picture back up there in the top left hand corner so that I could reference that even though it wasn't there while I was doing it. We can then sew this together as a 9 patch. So we begin by sewing all of those vertical seams and then the horizontal seams. I will be doing some seam clipping and some seam spinning throughout the ironing and finalizing process, and you would have seen there that we have one half square triangle left over, and that's fine. We made 10 and we only need 9. Now that we've sewn this first seam, you'll see that I'll just clip in up to but not through the stitching on every single one of those pieces before I press them, and that allows me to move those bulky seam allowances in the direction that they want to go, so in opposite directions, as you can see there. We'll then press all of these before adding that final third piece to each row, and then we'll repeat that same process, and when we come to our horizontal rows, I'll be back to give you some more guidance. With all of those vertical seams now sewn, we just need to do these horizontal seams, and you'll find that if you pressed the way I said and did that seam clipping, that these two intersections will nest. Then when we take it to the sewing machine to stitch our 1/4 of an inch, we can follow and make sure that we hit those points. Now I prefer to pin after the intersection rather than before, and what that allows for is if the machine wants to push the fabric out of the way, it can't, and you'll get a nice tight little nested seam there when you sew that horizontal seam. You may have noticed in that little fast forward bit that I was just going to press this in one direction, but I have decided to spin these seams. And what you need to do to achieve that is to pick out the few stitches that are above the seam line that we just made on each side, and then we can move those seam allowances up and down so that all seam allowances are going in the same direction, and in this instance that will be counterclockwise. I'll also have to snip in to but not past the stitching, the same as I did on the edges of those half square triangles, to get everything just so and as flat as possible, but only on that middle one. The one on the left and the right hand side won't need to be snipped, but the middle in the blue there I will snip, because those seam allowances do need to go in opposing directions. What spinning the seams does is it just controls the bulk, and it will give you the flattest block possible. Okay folks, just a quick one this week featuring half square triangles, which are the foundation block of many a quilt design. And I'm pretty sure that you're all experts at making them by now. So that's it for this week, folks. I'll see you all again real soon. Bye for now.